My father slid a single sheet of paper across the dinner table. His voice was cold, a complete stranger to the man who raised me. Sign it, Elena. Sell the house to your sister for $250,000, or as of tonight, you are no longer a part of this family. The house in question was a historic colonial home, worth more than $750,000. The house my grandmother left to me, and only me, because I was the only one who stayed beside her during the last 5 years of her life. They thought I would panic. They thought I would cry and beg to stay in the family. What they did not know was that 2 days earlier, I had already made a phone call to the one person my sister feared more than anyone else in the world. Hercio. Before I continue, please take 1 second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Also tell me where you are watching from and what time it is there right now. I always love reading your messages from around the world. I stared down at the paper on the table. The room smelled like expensive candles and roasted chicken. My mother sat quietly beside my father with her arms crossed, pretending this was normal. My sister Cassandra leaned back in her chair with a small smile on her face, like she had already won. The paper was simple: a transfer agreement. If I signed it, the house would legally belong to Cassandra. In exchange, she would pay me $250,000, less than half of what it was worth. I looked at my father slowly. You really want me to give away Grandma's house? His jaw tightened. It is not giving away anything. Your sister needs it more than you. I almost laughed at the sentence. Needs it more. Cassandra already lived in a luxury apartment downtown with marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows. She drove a silver Mercedes and spent more money on handbags than I spent in 6 months. But somehow she needed my grandmother's house. I folded my hands together under the table to stop them from shaking. You mean she wants it? Cassandra rolled her eyes immediately. Oh, please, Elena, stop acting like a victim. You got lucky. Grandma was emotional and made a stupid decision. My chest tightened hearing those words about the woman I loved most in the world. Grandma Evelyn was not emotional. She was wise, and she saw everything, especially the difference between people who loved her and people who used her. For 5 years, I lived in that house with her. 5 years. While Cassandra climbed corporate ladders and posted smiling pictures from business resorts and rooftop parties, I was helping Grandma walk to the bathroom at 2 in the morning. I cooked every meal. I organized every medication. I sat beside her during surgeries. I held her hand when she cried because cancer made her body weak. I listened to her stories over tea while rain hit the old windows of Willow Lane. And I would do it all again, because she was the only person in that family who ever truly saw me. Growing up, I was invisible. Cassandra was the star. Straight A student, cheer captain, business degree, perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect future. Meanwhile, I was the quiet daughter who loved books more than parties. I became a librarian because I liked peace and stories and helping children discover worlds inside pages. My father hated that. He used to introduce Cassandra proudly at family gatherings. This is my daughter, the executive. Then he would point at me. And Elena works at a library. Like it was something embarrassing. Over time, I stopped trying to earn their approval. But Grandma never made me feel small. She always said something different. Kind people are rare, Elena. Never apologize for being one. I remember the day she got sick. Cassandra called me crying dramatically on the phone. Can you go check on Grandma? I'm in meetings all week. Meetings. That word became her excuse for everything. I drove to the house immediately. Grandma answered the door slowly, holding onto the wall because she was too weak to stand properly. The kitchen sink was full. Her fridge was almost empty. Prescription bottles covered the counter. And suddenly I understood something painful. Nobody had really been helping her. Not truly. Not consistently. Not with love. That night I stayed over. Then 1 week became 1 month. 1 month became 6. Eventually I took leave from work because Grandma needed full-time care. When I told my parents, my mother sighed heavily on the phone. Elena, you are wasting the best years of your life. No, Mom. I'm helping Grandma. She has nurses. She needs family. There was silence for a second before she answered quietly, "Well, don't expect anything from her. She doesn't have much left anyway." I still remember staring at my phone after that call, feeling sick inside. Not because of money, because of how casually my mother talked about her own mother's life like it was some financial calculation. But Grandma heard everything, even the things nobody said out loud. Over those 5 years, she became my best friend. We watched old movies together. We planted flowers in the backyard every spring. Sometimes she would wake me up late at night because she could not sleep, and we would sit in the kitchen drinking tea while she told stories about her younger days. She once looked at me very seriously and said something I never forgot. Families often confuse love with control. At the time, I did not fully understand. Now I did. 3 weeks after her funeral, we sat in a lawyer's office surrounded by dark wooden walls and silence. The lawyer opened the will carefully. Cassandra looked confident. My father looked bored. My mother kept checking her phone. Then the lawyer cleared his throat. "I leave my home located at 1212 Willow Lane to my granddaughter Elena Vance, the only one who stayed when everyone else left." Everything changed in 1 second. Cassandra's face lost all color. "What?" The lawyer repeated it calmly. "The house belongs entirely to Elena." I remember hearing my father curse under his breath. My mother suddenly sat up straight. And for the first time in years, every eye in the room was on me. Not because I failed, not because I disappointed them, because I had something they wanted. The house was beautiful. Old white columns wrapped around the front porch. Large maple trees shaded the yard. Inside, the floors creaked softly with history. Grandma's roses still bloomed beside the walkway every spring. It was more than property. It was the only place I had ever truly felt safe. And suddenly everyone wanted it. The pressure began immediately. At first they acted gentle. Cassandra invited me to lunch, pretending to reconnect. My mother called more often in 1 week than she had in 6 months. My father suddenly cared about my future. Then came the guilt. Family shares things. Cassandra deserves stability. You do not even need a house that big. You owe your sister. When guilt failed, they tried anger. Cassandra cornered me one afternoon outside the library. "You think you won something," she snapped. "You got lucky." "No, Cassandra." I showed up. Her eyes narrowed instantly. "You always think you're morally superior." I looked at her calmly. "I never said that. Grandma did." That sentence hit her harder than I expected. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You should really think carefully, Elena. Connections matter. My company knows important people." I knew exactly what she meant. Threats. She thought she could scare me. Maybe years ago she could have. But after caring for a dying woman for 5 years, nothing else felt frightening anymore. Not even losing family. Because deep down I already had. The night after my father gave me the ultimatum, I sat alone in Grandma Evelyn's kitchen, staring at the old wooden table where we used to drink tea together every evening. The house was quiet except for the ticking clock above the refrigerator. For the first time since the funeral, I finally allowed myself to cry. Not because I was scared of losing the house, because I realized something painful. My family never saw me as a daughter or a sister. They saw me as an obstacle standing between them and something valuable. I wiped my tears quickly and looked around the kitchen. Grandma's favorite blue mug still sat beside the sink. Her reading glasses rested near the window. Everything still carried pieces of her. And suddenly I remembered the envelope. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly across the floor. 3 months before she died, Grandma handed me a sealed envelope while we were sitting on the porch together watching the rain. "Open this only if they try to take the house from you." At the time I laughed softly. "Grandma, nobody is going to fight over a house." But the sadness in her eyes told me she knew better. I rushed upstairs into her bedroom. The room still smelled faintly like lavender and old books. Inside the bottom drawer of her dresser, hidden beneath folded sweaters, was the envelope. My hand shook slightly as I opened it. Inside was a single handwritten note. "Elena, if you are reading this, it means they finally showed you who they really are. Do not feel guilty for protecting yourself. The house is yours because you earned it with love, not obligation. Call Sarah Jenkins. Trust carefully. Love, Grandma Evelyn." Folded behind the note was a business card. Sarah Jenkins, real estate attorney. I stared at the card for a long moment. Grandma planned for this. She knew exactly what would happen after she was gone. The next morning I called the number. A calm professional voice answered immediately. "Sarah Jenkins speaking. My name is Elena Vance. I think my grandmother Evelyn Vance wanted me to contact you." There was silence for half a second. Then her tone softened. "I've been expecting your call." 2 hours later, I sat inside Sarah's office downtown. She looked to be in her early 50s, sharp-dressed, confident, and impossible to intimidate. The kind of woman who probably terrified dishonest people. She listened carefully while I explained everything. The ultimatum, the threats, the pressure. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Your grandmother was very smart." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "She knew your family would try to manipulate you. That is why she prepared legal protections years ago." My heart skipped. "Legal protections?" Sarah nodded. "The property transfer was designed very carefully. Contesting the will would be extremely difficult and very expensive. Your grandmother anticipated conflict." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Then Sarah folded her hands together. "But your sister will not stop easily." I looked down. "I know. She works for Thorne Realty Group, correct?" I looked up surprised. "How do you know that?" Sarah gave a small smile. "Because they have been searching for a new executive satellite office in the Willow Lane district for months." I frowned slightly, not understanding. "So?" Sarah opened a file on her desk and turned it toward me. Inside were commercial property listings, maps, and financial reports. Then she tapped one address. 1212 Willow Lane. My house. An idea slowly formed in my head. Sarah watched my expression carefully. "I see you're beginning to understand." I swallowed hard. "You think they would buy the property?" "Not only buy it, they would likely pay above market value because the location is perfect." I stared at the papers. A strange feeling spread through my chest. Not fear. Possibility. Sarah leaned forward. "Your sister thinks you are weak because you are kind." Those are not the same thing, Elena. Nobody had ever said those words to me before. I looked at the map again. The idea felt impossible. Crazy, but also perfect. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Sarah smiled slowly. "A sale-leaseback agreement." I blinked. "A what?" "You sell the property to the company at full value. In return, you negotiate lifetime residential rights to the upper floor, while they convert the lower floor into executive office space." I stared at her in shock. "So I could still live there?" "Yes." "And they would pay full price?" "More than likely." A nervous laugh escaped my mouth. Cassandra would lose her mind. Sarah's eyes sparkled slightly. "I assume your sister expected to own the house herself. She already acts like she does. Then perhaps reality should disappoint her." For the first time since Grandma died, I genuinely smiled. Over the next week, everything moved quickly. Sarah handled most of the legal preparation while I tried to survive constant pressure from my family. My mother called every day. "Elena, your father is serious." "I know. You are tearing this family apart." "No, Mom. I'm just refusing to be controlled." She sighed dramatically. "You have changed." I almost laughed. No, I had finally stopped apologizing for existing. Cassandra became more aggressive. She showed up at the house uninvited twice. The second time, she walked through the living room criticizing everything. "This wallpaper is ancient. It's vintage. The kitchen needs complete renovation." "Good thing it's not your kitchen." Her jaw tightened immediately. "You really think you deserve this house?" I looked directly at her. "Yes." She stared at me like I had slapped her. Then she laughed coldly. "You've gotten arrogant." "No, Cassandra. Just tired." That answer made her furious. Because people like Cassandra survive by making others feel small. The moment you stop shrinking, they lose power. A few days later, I finally received the phone call Sarah had been waiting for. Julian Thorne would like to meet you personally. My stomach tightened instantly. Julian Thorne, CEO of Thorne Realty Group, also Cassandra's boss, apparently one of the most intimidating businessmen in the city. The meeting was scheduled for Friday morning at the company headquarters. I barely slept the night before. Not because I doubted the deal, because I knew if this worked everything would change forever. Friday morning arrived gray and rainy. I wore my simplest navy dress and tied my hair back neatly. Nothing flashy, nothing expensive, just myself. The Thorne Realty building was enormous, all glass steel and polished marble. Employees moved quickly through the lobby carrying coffee and laptops. Everyone looked important. For a second, old insecurities crept back into my chest. I did not belong here. I was just a librarian from a quiet neighborhood. But then I remembered Grandma's voice. Never let louder people convince you they are more valuable. I lifted my chin and walked toward the elevator. Julian Thorne's assistant greeted me on the top floor and guided me into a massive office overlooking the city skyline. And there he was. Tall, calm, sharply dressed, probably around 50, with silver at the edges of his dark hair. He looked up from his desk as I entered. His expression immediately surprised me. Warm, respectful. Miss Vance, thank you for coming. I shook his hand carefully. Thank you for meeting me. He gestured toward the chair across from him. I've heard quite a bit about your property. I sat slowly, trying not to look nervous. Yes, sir. Then he smiled slightly. And apparently my senior manager has as well. I knew exactly who he meant. Cassandra. My cheeks warmed, but I stayed calm. I assumed so. Julian studied me quietly for a moment. You know, most people entering this office ask for favors. You arrived with leverage. That is rare. I honestly did not know how to answer that, so I simply said the truth. I'm just trying to protect my grandmother's home. Something in his expression shifted slightly after hearing that. Not pity, respect. He opened the file in front of him. Your proposal is very interesting. My heart pounded. This was really happening. And somewhere across the city, my sister still believed she could force me into surrender. She had no idea her own company was about to change everything. Julian Thorne studied the property file carefully while rain tapped softly against the giant windows behind him. For a moment, the entire office felt silent except for the sound of pages turning. Then he looked up at me. Tell me honestly, Miss Vance, why not simply sell the house and move on? The question was calm but direct. I took a slow breath before answering. Because it is the only place that ever truly felt like home. He nodded once, like he understood more than he wanted to admit. Then he leaned back slightly in his chair. My company has wanted property in the Willow Lane district for over a year. Your location is ideal. Historic charm, quiet area, easy access to downtown clients. Frankly, it is perfect. I stayed quiet. However, he continued, I'm more interested in your proposal itself. He tapped the contract lightly. You structured this very intelligently. I smiled nervously. I had help. Sarah Jenkins? Yes. A small amused look crossed his face. She's one of the best real estate attorneys in the state. Expensive too. My grandmother trusted her. That tells me a lot about your grandmother. Something about the way he said it made me feel emotional for a second. Julian closed the file slowly. Your sister works for me. There it was. The sentence I knew would come eventually. I kept my face calm. Yes. She's ambitious. That was one word for it. He watched my expression carefully, probably expecting me to complain or insult Cassandra. But I didn't. Instead, I simply said, she works very hard. A faint smile appeared on his face. Diplomatic answer. I shrugged softly. She's still my sister. That answer seemed to surprise him. After everything Cassandra had done, I still refused to destroy her. Not because she deserved kindness, because Grandma taught me not to become bitter just because others were cruel. Julian stood and walked toward the large window overlooking the city. You know your sister requested a transfer to Willow Lane 3 months ago. My stomach tightened instantly. She did. Yes. She claimed she intended to purchase property there soon. I almost laughed. Of course she did. Cassandra had probably been planning this long before Grandma even passed away. Julian turned toward me again. She never mentioned the property belonged to her grandmother. She probably assumed it eventually would. He studied me quietly for a moment. Then he made a decision. If we move forward, your terms will be accepted. I blinked in shock. Really? Yes. Full market purchase price. Residential lease agreement for the top floor. 15-year guarantee with renewal options. For a second, I could barely process the words. $750,000. Security, protection, freedom, and I would still keep my home. Tears almost filled my eyes, but I forced myself to stay composed. Thank you. Julian shook his head slightly. No, Miss Vance. Thank you. Very few people walk into negotiations prepared, especially against family pressure. The sentence hit harder than he probably realized, because for years my family convinced me I was weak, too emotional, too soft, too quiet, and now a powerful CEO was sitting across from me treating me like an equal. As the meeting ended, Julian paused near the door. One more thing. Yes. There will be a company launch event once renovations are complete. Mandatory attendance for senior staff. I immediately understood what that meant. Cassandra, working inside my house. The thought almost felt unreal. Julian's mouth curved slightly like he knew exactly what I was thinking. Life creates interesting ironies sometimes. By the time I returned home that evening, my phone already contained 6 missed calls from Cassandra. I ignored every single one, but she showed up anyway. Her silver Mercedes pulled sharply into the driveway just after sunset. I opened the front door before she even knocked. She stormed inside immediately, heels clicking across Grandma's hardwood floors. What the hell are you doing? I crossed my arms calmly. Good evening to you too. Do not play games with me, Elena. Interesting. She already knew. I tilted my head slightly. How did you find out? My assistant overheard people talking about Willow Lane at work. Her face looked pale with anger. You contacted Thorne Realty behind my back? I almost laughed at the sentence. Behind your back? Cassandra, it's my house. You are humiliating me. No, I'm protecting myself. You could have sold it directly to me. For 1/3 of its value? You do not need that kind of money. The arrogance of that sentence stunned me, as if she alone deserved success, as if my dreams mattered less because they were quieter. I looked directly into her eyes. You know what the difference is between us? Her expression hardened. What? You think money proves value? Grandma didn't. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Pain. Real pain. But it disappeared almost instantly, replaced by anger again. You always thought you were better than me because you took care of her. No, Cassandra. I think she deserved better from all of us. Silence filled the room heavily. Then her voice lowered dangerously. If you go through with this, things will never be the same. I nodded slowly. They already aren't. She stared at me for another long second before turning sharply toward the door. But before leaving, she stopped. You know what your problem is, Elena? I stayed quiet. You always wanted people to choose you for once. The sentence cut deeper than I expected because it was true. All my life I wanted to feel important to my family, wanted to feel seen, wanted to feel loved without conditions. Cassandra looked back at me coldly. Grandma choosing you made you think you finally mattered. After she left, I stood frozen in the hallway for several minutes. Not because I believed her, because part of me knew she was speaking from her own insecurity too. Cassandra needed to win because deep down she believed losing meant becoming invisible. And maybe our parents created that fear in both of us, just in different ways. That night my father called. I almost ignored him. Almost. But something inside me still hoped maybe this time he would speak like my father again instead of a businessman negotiating property. Elena. His voice sounded tense. Yes. I heard about the office deal. I assumed you would. A long silence followed. Then came the disappointment. You are embarrassing this family. I closed my eyes slowly. No, Dad. I embarrassed the plan. You are acting vindictive. If I wanted revenge, I could have destroyed Cassandra's career. I didn't. That silence told me he knew I was right. Finally, he sighed heavily. You've changed. There it was again. That same sentence everyone kept repeating, as if becoming stronger was somehow betrayal. Quietly, I answered him. No. I just stopped accepting disrespect. He had no response to that. The renovations began 2 weeks later. Construction teams arrived daily. The bottom floor slowly transformed into elegant office space, while the upper floor remained untouched exactly as Grandma left it. At first, the changes felt strange. Workers carrying equipment through the halls, phones ringing downstairs, business meetings replacing quiet afternoons. But eventually I adapted, and honestly, it felt satisfying. Every fresh coat of paint downstairs represented freedom. Every signed document represented security. For the first time in my life, nobody controlled me financially, emotionally, or mentally. One afternoon during renovations, I found an old photograph hidden inside Grandma's desk drawer. It showed her standing in front of the house decades ago beside a younger version of my grandfather, both smiling proudly. On the back, she had written something in blue ink. A home should protect peace, not destroy it. I sat on the floor staring at those words for a long time. Then suddenly I understood why Grandma left the house to me. Not because I sacrificed 5 years. Not because she owed me. Because she trusted me not to turn the house into something ugly. And despite everything my family had done, I still intended to honor that. A week before the official office launch, Sarah visited the house to finalize paperwork. She looked around the renovated downstairs office, impressed. This turned out beautifully. It really did. She smiled knowingly. And your sister? I laughed softly for the first time in days. She's furious. As expected. Then Sarah handed me the final contract folder. Everything is officially complete. I stared down at the papers. It was done. Nobody could take the house from me now. Nobody could threaten me anymore. For the first time since Grandma died, I finally felt safe again. But the biggest moment was still coming. Because in 6 days, Thorn Realty would host its official launch event at 1212 Willow Lane. And Cassandra still had no idea about the final part of Julian's plan. The morning of the launch event felt strangely calm. Sunlight poured through the kitchen windows while I stood making coffee in Grandma's old blue kettle. Downstairs, employees from Thorn Realty moved through the new office, preparing decorations, flowers, and catering tables for the evening event. Meanwhile, upstairs, everything remained exactly the same. Grandma's books still lined the shelves. Her old clock still ticked softly in the hallway. The smell of lavender still lingered in the bedrooms. It felt like 2 different worlds living inside one house. Corporate ambition below, peaceful memories above. And somehow I stood in the middle of both. I carried my coffee onto the porch and looked across Willow Lane. Neighbors slowed their cars all week, staring at the changes. Most of them probably assumed I sold the house completely. None of them knew I still lived there. And none of them knew the emotional storm arriving that evening. Around noon, Julian called me personally. Everything ready for tonight? I think so. You sound nervous. I laughed softly. Should I not be? You negotiated a $750,000 commercial agreement against family pressure. I doubt a dinner party will defeat you. His confidence in me still surprised me every time. Thank you again for all of this. You earned it, Elena. Those words stayed with me long after the call ended. You earned it. Not lucky. Not selfish. Not manipulative. Earned it. By 6 o'clock, black luxury cars began arriving outside the house. Executives stepped out wearing expensive suits and polished smiles. Laughter drifted through the downstairs office while soft music played near the entrance. I remained upstairs for a while, watching quietly from the hallway mirror. Part of me considered staying hidden all evening, avoiding drama, avoiding confrontation. But then I looked at Grandma's framed photo beside the staircase, and I knew hiding was exactly what the old version of me would have done. Not anymore. I chose a simple dark green dress, tied my hair carefully, and walked downstairs. The moment I entered the office, several employees turned toward me politely. Some recognized me immediately from the contracts. Others probably assumed I was another executive guest. Then Julian spotted me across the room. His expression warmed instantly. There she is. He walked over confidently, holding a glass of sparkling water. Miss Vance, you look wonderful tonight. Thank you. Several executives nearby suddenly looked more interested after hearing my name. One older man smiled. So you're the homeowner we've all heard about. I felt slightly embarrassed. I suppose so. Julian shook his head lightly. No. You are the businesswoman who negotiated one of the smartest local property deals I've seen in years. For a second, I genuinely did not know what to say. Nobody in my life had ever described me that way before. Not intelligent, not capable, certainly not impressive. Yet here I stood surrounded by successful people who respected me more than my own family ever had. And then the front door opened. Cassandra arrived. The room suddenly felt smaller. She stepped inside wearing a white designer dress with diamond earrings sparkling under the lights. Perfect makeup, perfect posture, perfect smile. At least until she saw me standing beside Julian. The smile disappeared instantly. I watched the exact second realization hit her. This was not temporary. This was real. Her office. My house. Her face lost color so quickly even nearby employees noticed. Julian remained calm beside me. Ah, Cassandra. Glad you could make it. She forced a tight smile immediately. Of course. But her eyes never left me. I could practically feel the anger radiating from her across the room. Julian continued smoothly. I was just speaking with Miss Vance about the success of this partnership. Partnership. That word clearly hurt Cassandra, because for years she positioned herself above me. Now suddenly we stood on equal ground professionally. Maybe for the first time in her life she realized I was not beneath her anymore. Several employees approached Cassandra asking questions about upcoming projects. She answered automatically, but her focus kept shifting toward me, like she still could not fully process what happened. Eventually, she crossed the room directly toward me. We need to talk. Her smile remained frozen for appearances, but her voice underneath sounded sharp enough to cut glass. Julian glanced between us calmly. I'll leave you two for a moment. The second he stepped away, Cassandra's expression changed completely. You planned this. I stayed calm. I protected myself. You turned my workplace into your revenge fantasy. No, Cassandra. Your company made a business decision. You knew this would humiliate me. I looked around slowly at the beautiful office, the polished floors, the smiling executives. Then back at her. No. Humiliation came from believing you deserved something that was never yours. Her jaw tightened instantly. You really think people respect you now? I answered honestly. They already respect me more than my own family ever did. That sentence hit hard. I saw it in her eyes immediately, because deep down Cassandra knew it was true. Before she could answer, Julian tapped a spoon gently against his glass at the front of the room. The conversations quieted. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for attending tonight's launch celebration. Employees gathered around, smiling politely. Cassandra slowly stepped beside her team near the center of the room. I remained near the staircase, listening carefully. Julian continued confidently. This office represents growth, innovation, and strong partnerships. And none of it would have happened without the cooperation of one very intelligent woman. Then he looked directly at me. Elena Vance. Suddenly every eye in the room turned toward me. My heart pounded hard inside my chest. Julian smiled warmly. Miss Vance approached this negotiation with professionalism, integrity, and remarkable strategic thinking. Frankly, she impressed all of us. A few people actually applauded lightly. I saw Cassandra standing frozen beside her coworkers. Her expression looked almost unreal, like the world beneath her feet had shifted unexpectedly. Then came the final blow. Because of the importance of this location, we have selected a lead manager to oversee operations here twice weekly. Julian paused intentionally. Cassandra Vance. The silence afterward was unforgettable. Several employees clapped politely again while Cassandra stood completely still. I honestly almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because now she understood the full reality. Every week she would drive to Willow Lane. Every week she would walk through the front door of the house she tried to take from me. Every week she would be reminded that manipulation failed. And every week she would see me living peacefully upstairs. Julian raised his glass. To new beginnings. Everyone repeated the toast. But Cassandra never touched her drink. The event continued awkwardly after that. Executives mingled around the office discussing projects and investments while Cassandra avoided me completely. Eventually, my mother and father arrived late. The second they entered the office, their faces darkened. My mother looked horrified. My father looked furious. They walked directly toward me. "What have you done?" my mother whispered sharply. I blinked calmly. "Hosted a business launch." "This is cruel, Elena." Cruel. Interesting word. Not the threats. Not the pressure. Not trying to steal my inheritance. No. Apparently protecting myself was the cruel part. My father lowered his voice angrily. "You made your sister look ridiculous." I stared at him quietly for several seconds before answering. "No, Dad. Her own greed did that." His face hardened immediately. "You are enjoying this?" That question honestly surprised me. Was I enjoying revenge? No, but I was enjoying freedom. And there was a difference. Before I could answer, Julian approached again, greeting my parents politely. "Mr. and Mrs. Vance, thank you for attending." My father forced a stiff smile. Julian continued calmly. "You raised two very determined daughters." The sentence hung strangely in the air. Because everyone standing there knew only one daughter had been respected for years. And suddenly the invisible daughter was no longer invisible. Later that evening, after most guests left, I stood alone on the porch watching cars disappear into the night. The air smelled like rain and roses. For the first time in weeks, the house felt peaceful again. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Cassandra. She stopped beside the porch railing, staring into the darkness. For once she looked exhausted instead of perfect. Quietly she spoke. "You really changed everything." I folded my arms gently against the cold night air. "No. I just stopped letting other people decide my worth." For several seconds she said nothing. Then she laughed softly but sadly. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "I honestly never believed you would fight back." That sentence told me everything about how my family viewed me all these years. Weak. Soft. Easy to control. I looked at her carefully. "You should have listened to Grandma more." Her eyes lowered toward the porch floor. "She always liked you better." "No, Cassandra. She just trusted me more." That truth hurt her. I could see it immediately, but it was still the truth. After Cassandra left the porch that night, I stayed outside alone for a long time, listening to the quiet sound of wind moving through the maple trees. The house looked beautiful under the porch lights. Warm. Safe. Still filled with Grandma's spirit somehow. Downstairs, the office lights slowly turned off one by one as employees finished cleaning after the event. And upstairs, my home waited peacefully exactly where it always had. For the first time in my entire life, I felt something unfamiliar. Control over my own future. Not fear. Not guilt. Not the exhausting need to earn love from people determined not to give it. Just peace. The next few weeks settled into a strange new routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Black company cars arrived outside Willow Lane. Executives walked into meetings carrying laptops and coffee cups while I drank tea upstairs, grading children's reading assignments from the library. At first, the situation felt surreal. Sometimes I would hear professional conversations drifting faintly through the floor while I watered Grandma's plants in the kitchen. Corporate strategy downstairs. Quiet healing upstairs. Two completely different worlds connected by one staircase. And somehow it worked. More importantly, I worked. Better than I had in years. The constant pressure from my family slowly disappeared after they realized I would never surrender the house. Not because they suddenly respected my decision, because they finally understood manipulation no longer controlled me. That realization changed everything. My mother still called occasionally, but the conversation stayed shallow and uncomfortable. My father barely spoke to me at all. And Cassandra? Well, seeing her twice a week became its own kind of strange experience. The first few visits were painfully awkward. She avoided eye contact whenever possible. If we crossed paths near the front entrance, she gave short, cold greetings before rushing downstairs into meetings. But over time, something unexpected happened. The anger slowly faded. Not completely, but enough for silence to become less sharp. One rainy Thursday morning, I walked downstairs early to collect a package near the front door. Cassandra stood alone in the office kitchen making coffee. For a second, both of us froze awkwardly. Then she quietly stepped aside. "You can go first." Simple sentence. But honestly, it shocked me. Old Cassandra never stepped aside for anyone. I picked up the package carefully. "Thank you." She nodded once, looking strangely tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. Stress maybe, or pride finally collapsing under reality. As I turned toward the staircase, she suddenly spoke again. "Did Grandma really wake you up at night for tea?" I paused. The question caught me completely off guard. Slowly, I looked back at her. "Sometimes." A faint, sad smile touched her lips. "She used to do that with me too when I was little." For a second, neither of us spoke. And suddenly I realized something painful. Cassandra lost Grandma too. Maybe differently than I did. Maybe with more regret. But loss still hurt. Quietly, I answered her. "She talked about you a lot." Cassandra looked genuinely surprised. "She did?" "Yes." "What did she say?" I thought carefully before answering. "She said you were strong but lonely." That sentence hit something deep inside her. I saw it immediately in her eyes. She looked away quickly, pretending to focus on her coffee. But her voice came out softer afterward. "She always understood people too well." Yes, she did. That conversation stayed in my mind for days afterward. Because for the first time in years, I saw my sister not as the golden child or the enemy, just as another damaged person shaped by the same family. Our parents built competition between us our entire lives. Cassandra learned achievement earned love. I learned silence avoided disappointment. Neither of us won. One Sunday afternoon, my mother unexpectedly visited alone. No phone call. No warning. I opened the front door cautiously. She looked nervous, standing there holding a small container wrapped in cloth. I made soup. For a second, I almost laughed from confusion. My mother never cooked for me. Not once in years. Slowly, I stepped aside. "Come in." She walked quietly through the hallway, looking around the house carefully, almost like she had forgotten what it felt like inside. When we reached the kitchen, her eyes landed on Grandma's blue mug beside the sink. Immediately, tears filled her eyes. She always loved that mug. I stayed silent. My mother sat slowly at the kitchen table. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then finally, she whispered something I never expected to hear. "I should have helped more." The honesty in her voice stunned me. Not dramatic, not defensive, just tired and honest. I sat across from her quietly. "She missed you." My mother looked down, immediately tears slipping onto her hands. I know. That moment changed something between us. Not complete forgiveness, not perfect healing, but truth finally entered the room for the first time in years. And truth has power. Over the next few months, small things continued changing. My father remained distant but less angry. My mother started visiting occasionally for tea. And Cassandra slowly stopped acting like we were enemies in a war. One evening after work, she even stayed upstairs for dinner. The entire situation felt so strange, I almost expected cameras to appear from nowhere. But there we sat at Grandma's kitchen table, eating pasta quietly while rain hit the windows. At one point, Cassandra looked around softly. "You kept everything the same." I nodded. "It feels wrong changing too much." She smiled sadly. She would have liked that. Then after a long silence, she finally said the words I never thought I would hear. I was cruel to you. I looked at her carefully. Maybe she expected me to attack her back. Maybe she expected anger. But honestly, I was too tired carrying old pain anymore. So I simply answered truthfully, yes, you were. Her eyes filled with guilt immediately. I'm sorry. The little girl inside me, the invisible daughter who spent years begging silently to matter, wanted to cry hearing those words. But healing does not erase history. It just stops history from controlling you. Quietly, I answered her. I forgive you, but things can't go back to how they were. She nodded slowly, understanding exactly what I meant. Boundaries. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just boundaries. And honestly, that was the greatest lesson Grandma ever taught me. Love without boundaries becomes sacrifice. Family without respect becomes control. And kindness without self-worth becomes weakness in the hands of selfish people. Almost a year passed after the launch event. Willow Lane became one of the most successful small offices in Thorn Realty's network. Julian occasionally visited for meetings and always treated me warmly. One afternoon, he smiled while reviewing reports downstairs. You know, this office performs better than half our downtown locations. I laughed softly. Maybe Grandma's house has good energy. Or maybe the woman running the building upstairs intimidates everyone into competence. For the first time in my life, compliments no longer made me uncomfortable, because I finally believed I deserved them. Some evenings I still sit alone on the porch drinking tea while sunset covers Willow Lane in gold light. Sometimes I think about the old version of myself. The quiet daughter desperate for approval. The exhausted caregiver afraid to disappoint everyone. The woman willing to shrink herself just to keep peace. She feels so far away now. Grandma used to say something near the end of her life. People reveal themselves when money enters the room. She was right. My inheritance did not destroy my family. It exposed them. But strangely, it also exposed me. Not weak, not invisible, not less important, just stronger than anyone ever expected, including myself. And now every morning I wake up in the house Grandma trusted me to protect. I make coffee in her kitchen. I hear life moving downstairs. And for the first time I understand something powerful. Quiet people are not powerless. Sometimes they are simply waiting to remember their worth. Before you go, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. And tell me honestly, if you were in my place, would you choose forgiveness or boundaries? I would really love to hear your answer.